Welcome everyone. So great to see you again and to come by the end of the year to this amazing audience. Maybe some of you have heard some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you, but I'm going to present even those ideas from a separate, from another angle a little bit. And I have added up some exercises. So it's called How to Ensure an Effective Presentation Delivery. And let me tell you about from what exactly angle we are going to look at those problems today. The best thing is, of course, to make your presentation effective is to refer to the great quotes. And this Shakespeare's quote from Merchant of Venice will probably the best illustrate what we're going to work on today. Good sentences and well pronounced. They would be better if well followed. So we would exactly talk about the good sentences. This is about the impact and rapport techniques. But those impact and rapport techniques are very nice on paper. We are going to talk about public speaking. So they should be really well pronounced, literally speaking, to get the message across with style and impact. And paraphrasing Shakespeare a little bit, they will be better if well followed. So we'll have some exercises and practice our voice and compiling those and making up those impact techniques. The focus, the very narrow focus today, is to show you some specific things when we non-native speakers, and particularly Russian speakers, switch to another mode. And this mode is when we switch to speaking in English or giving presentations in English. And you know, it happens to everyone. Any non-native speakers, native speakers and non-native speakers particularly, that we are terribly stressed. And this stress reveals through our, of course, verbal and non-verbal behavior, but particularly on it has an effect on the body language and the voice, of course. So we very often sound rather monotonous, speaking within a narrow pitch range, and thus our speech becomes rather, not non-contrastive, and that's very difficult for the people to understand what exactly we are willing to say, right? Unintelligible, but this is about diction mostly. We are not going to talk about the text itself, right? So that it were coherent, for example, and not wordy and all that. We are going about getting the central idea across and making it, sort of beautiful and stylish. And sometimes we Russian speakers, particularly we Russian speakers, we sound pushy, like emphasizing every word, within a narrow range in a monotonous tone. Believe me, this is mostly the trouble with any non-native speakers, because it's really stressful to speak in a foreign language. And besides, the stress is doubled because we're speaking in public. And that's also about that really covers everyone in the world, probably, because public speaking, as you know, is stress or fear number 2, probably for all of us. Well, this is the narrow angle from which I'm going to look at the voice and impact. So all in all, you remember, so good words, they are impact and rapport. If we again getting back to that quote by from Shakespeare, impact and rapport techniques. This is good words. Well pronounced, voice and tone. How to use voice and tone nicely to emphasize ideas, to make them more contrastive. How to combat stress, probably, in a way. And of course, I will give you tips for embellishing and for improving, probably, or for developing our Russian delivering speeches in Russian, or giving some tips for non-native speakers. Well, let's probably get started, but let's get started from let's recollect some of the things. Many of you might have seen this pie chart, which is about the elements of personal communication, and this is the channels through which the audience perceives our information. If we get the message across, then 7% of the information goes, is attributed to the content itself. This is the words, this is the text. Much more, this is about 40%, owes to what the people hear. And this is exactly the voice. This is the sound of our voice, the tone of our voice. All which is called intonation, what people hear and what people see, and this is the body language, is perceived, attributes for more than half of all the attention span of the audience. So we will concentrate mostly on how to use voice to emphasize ideas by emphasizing ideas through impact techniques and building rapport techniques. And let's go to the first part, which is impact techniques. At least seven key rhetorical or impact techniques. Repetition of words and sounds, contrasts and opposites, repetition of threes, questions, rhetorical questions, accumulating points, and metaphorical and beautiful, probably emotional language. And it's called amplificatia. So they are amplified. 1, 2, 3, 4, many arguments. It's actually called the machine gunning. So sometimes you really have to accumulate supporting points or backup material or arguments. And when there are more than 3, people are really impressed more than with 3, sometimes. And we can even build on pace, build on speed, saying speaking like, okay, other things invented, the computer, the refrigerator, the electric. Actually, no one cares what exactly has been invented, but what matters is there are more than 3, actually, or just many more than. Usually this amplification is followed by the so-called razryadka, the summing up sentence. So all in all, we are extremely successful, well, something like that. But this is accumulating supporting points. Metaphor, there can be lots of others, right? They're beautiful, really. We need to work specially on them to make our speech a little bit more visualized and probably emotionally touching. We can use emotional vocabulary. Besides, metaphorical language, like we were given a warm welcome. It was like a family reunion, so we can use similes. It's сравнение, metaphors, similes. Frankly, I would not go there about talking about the differences. They are really fine, but we should make our language more visualized and more emotionally informed, more emotionally loaded. So, and I'm sure you can imagine like a lot of synonyms. Instead of saying big, we can exaggerate and say massive, for example, instead of like wet, like soaked through, such comparisons like as busy as a bee, as cold as ice, and lots and more. But again, the beauty is the metaphorical language and visualized and emotional vocabulary and emotional language. Now, the vocal component, you remember again that pie chart with the body language or some visual components, the content component, and the vocal component, what people hear, the vocal component of communication. What's all about? This is about the tone of voice. So how we change the tone of voice, or about the pitch, and probably about the timbre sometimes. So I'm actually simplifying, a little bit simplifying the special or terminology, because it's really very complicated. So instead of saying intonation or what the segmentals, super segmentals, I'm using just the word voice, right? What we hear. So tone of voice, which is because we are like birds, actually, we sing and the melody changes. Clarity of speech necessarily, if we want to get the message across nicely, and if we in fact want to get the message across, then we have to speak clearly. This is about diction, and we as public speakers will have to work on that. Then the pitch range. This is diapason, right? The pitch range, and you can imagine that for public speaking, the pitch range does matter, because the wider the pitch range, the more we can exercise our voice and show the contrastiveness of ideas. We have to use the pitch range, or use it as widen it a little bit in comparison with some casual everyday conversation, specifically to make the speech contrastive, and also to use different scales. Sometimes scales, I mean, different melodies, and of course, and just for the beauty and for emphasizing ideas, and to overcome this monotonous delivery, which will get us nowhere. And I will have a word about the speech range a little bit later. Loudness, well, self-spoken, self-evident, you can imagine that loudness is important. Pace and rhythm. The English rhythm, the English speech is really very rhythmic, and if you add up those impact techniques like threes or fives, repeating of sounds, repeating of things, then they will create rhythm necessarily. Pace, this is the speed. And the key word here for all of them is variety. So we should vary the tone of voice. This is the melody, to avoid the monotony. Then the pitch range, wider, narrow, probably. Then the loudness, of course, varying the loudness to emphasize, to highlight the key information, and probably we can speak a little bit faster and probably quieter for some not so important information. So these are the parts of the ingredients of the vocal component of intonation. All in all, even make it simpler, they are pitch, power, pace, and pause. Now let us get to some more practice, and I would like to bring my favorite picture. Many of you have seen that. This is about the posture. So if we really want to get the message across, if we really want to exercise our voice up to its potential, if we really want to project confidence, and effectiveness, of course, of any delivery is about confidence, first of all, and confidence starts with the posture. Now, I would ask each of you to do this very simple exercise. Please sit straight in your chairs. Put your chin a little bit up, just like the figure of a famous Italian movie star, film star, Sophia Loren. And as you understand, there is another outstanding speaker. This is Vladimir Lenin, and you see there is very much in common in their posture. She is a trained actress. He is an outstanding speaker, of course. So, and both of them really made a great impact on all the audiences they performed to, right? They delivered their roles of speeches to. Yes, so this posture, and I will probably remind you from time to time to keep that posture throughout this, today's training. And please keep it while I will give you some more theoretical input. Pitch range and pitch change. You remember I said that among the vocal components, this is one of the key probably ingredients, so that's a very important one for us Russians. Due to the research that my colleagues did at my alma mater, Ilias Marisa Teresa. So investigating the speech of the educated British and American speakers and their speeches, they found that the pitch range is a very important factor to differentiate between the educated and non-educated speakers. So non-educated speakers will be speaking with a narrow pitch range, then in the educated speakers, then it's also a striking factor to differentiate between regional and standard pronunciation. Standard meaning people speaking the norm of the British probably speech, and so those educated speakers and those people who live, say, in villages, in some remote areas, not very much educated, they would perform in a rather narrow pitch range. Then it is a very important pitch range is a very important social marker, again making a difference between the lower social class and higher social class. Between a monologue and dialogue. In a dialogue, in a more casual conversation, we might be rather emotional from time to time, but on average, the pitch range would be narrower. Again, formal and informal. You can imagine those formal speeches addressing big audiences like the UN or whatever. And then, of course, the pitch range would be wide, much, much wider than just in an informal talk when we talk to our friends or relatives, or when we are giving internal presentations among the colleagues. We can afford conversational tone, and that the pitch range might be narrower. Then the higher authority, even and lower authority, and of course, and probably with age, and that particularly concerns us professors, people who, whose professional skill is to speak to audiences, to speak in public. The more mature we are, the more experience we gain, then the wider our pitch range is, just by exercising it very often. Young people speak usually in a narrower range. So pitch range and pitch change and pitch range, well, I hope I have proved to you that this is very important. And this is particularly important for us Russians, because an average pitch range of an educated Russian speaker is just inherently narrower than the pitch range of a similar educated of the same person of the same status, but of American and British. Well, we particularly focused on American and British speakers, which actually constitute the majority of the native speakers in the world. Now, I hope that you are still keeping the posture. Are you? Posture. And some very, very simple exercise of the tongue twisters. You know lots of them. I'm focusing on several of them. And by showing you those exercises, we also, working on how to fine tune the voice before actually any delivery. And if you haven't warmed up, then nothing will happen. So pitch range, of course, diction, of course, this is pronunciation as well. Those tongue twisters, in order to widen the pitch range, we have to start higher and use the rhythm, because all those tongue twisters should be pronounced with the rhythm, and then they will be remembered better, and will work on the rhythm of the English speech. And here is one more thing. Hope you can see that. Don't worry, this is about the falling tone at the end of these statements. Why this picture? Actually the English ending falling tone, and the falling tone prevails in any speech, because the majority of the speeches would be persuading speeches. We will aim to convince the people of our ideas. So the prevailing the prevailing tone at the end of the statements, and they will be mostly statements, would be the fall. And again, according to the research, even India's graduates lack this finality, and that's why when they are perceived as probably not very much confident in what they're speaking about, or probably not very much sure of themselves, of those ideas, and they sound sort of unfinished, and then they don't sound confident. So because the English tone of voice goes much lower than in Russian. If we end up it in the Russian way, then it would be like da-da, da-da, and they would need da-da, da-da, a little bit lower, and that's particularly important for public speaking and for persuasive speeches. And this purse or whatever wallet open, showing that it's empty, because I usually tell the students this mantra, like, imagine that somebody wants to borrow the money from you and they keep asking you, keep begging and all that, and at last you say денег нет. And this "нет" would probably, be a certain sound image for them to remember with that falling tone. So it's not like which wicked wish. It would be which wicked wish. Liniment, elephants. Which wished which wicked wish. Lovely lemon liniment. 77 benevolent elephants. Pirates' private property. World Wide Web. And let me probably repeat one trivial idea, that in writing they have, we have punctuation, we have words and beautiful vocabulary, and people can get back to the beginning and read it all over again. In speaking, it's only us, it's only the voice and our attitude and the body language, and that is it. How we can deliver messages. You remember that the content takes only 7% of the people's probably attention. Now let us move on, talking about the voice, but of course those impact techniques, no matter how powerful they are, they should be used meaningfully to the purpose. We cannot, overuse. We should not actually overuse them and emphasize any single idea. Of course, we should concentrate on the most important ideas, on the key message, and then how to crystallize, so to speak, that key message, and how to think up all those facts and figures that we would need for a certain presentation, how to think about how to adjust our verbal and non-verbal behavior. There are 3 factors that will influence that. So if we really want to be effective, of course, we should think first of all about the audience. We should Google the audience. We should know anything about them. We should know the audience profile in every minute detail. We should know about their age, gender, income, whatever their demographic factors, their level of expertise, who they are by status or behavioral, their needs and wants, and their values and culture and interests. So audience, of course, is our main client. So, and we should adjust to some special occasion to this particular audience. What might they expect of us? And then we can adjust everything, those impact techniques and everything. Then we should designate the context. Of course, speaking before lunch and after lunch would be 2 different things or 2 different contexts for the speaker. So we have to adjust to the mood of the audience. Or formality of the occasion. Of course, you remember the more formal the occasions, then we should probably speak slower, more distinctly, use shorter chunks, speak louder if we don't have a microphone, for example. And even thinking about the idiomacy of the language, if the audience is mixed, in terms of their native language, if it is an international mix of people, then we should probably think about a little bit simplifying the language, then probably make it more idiomatic, and think about whether those similes, those comparisons would work for any kind of culture. So formality, the audience. Only after designating those 3 factors, we can come to designating and identifying the central idea. And the central idea could be only one main central idea. And just like in writing, this is the thesis statement. The same is true about speaking. The central idea and the purpose, it is to persuade, to entertain, to inform. But actually, from my point of view, all the speeches are persuasive because we really want the people to share our ideas and to get interested in our ideas, not just to get them familiarized with our ideas. So first audience, context, and purpose, and central idea, and then the purpose. And now let us probably add up some openness, because the main attitude to the audience, to whatever audience, you know, whatever level of expertise, their level of expertise, whatever, whether they are hostile or friendly, we should really be benevolent and project benevolence by opening palms. So if you can, please acquire this position or this posture now. And while doing that, so keep the posture of Sophie Lorraine, smile like Steve Jobs, open your palms. You can just put your arms on the table and have a look at this exercise. These are rapport techniques. Actually, in each of those 11 sentences, rapport techniques to keep people interested on the one hand, at the same time to establish rapport. We can establish rapport not only by keeping eye contact with the audience, but also with some, you know, language techniques, so to speak. But of course, we have to pronounce those statements with, you know, addressing the audience and show them our friendliness and well, good mood, showing them that we love them. Rapport is a French word for keeping the audience connected. It's a connection, building connection with the audience. So I think it's essential as well as impact techniques for making your presentation effective, because we have to keep the interest of the audience and to show them that we are one of them, that we are doing it all for them. And we have to keep in touch, so to speak, be connected with them all the time. So tag questions, first of all, is the first rapport technique that we could be using, right? Without this tag question, this would be just a plain statement. Sorry, this isn't really surprising. But if you say, "Is it?" then the audience say, "Oh, that's a question to us," and they will get back to us if something happened, you know. But the most important thing is денег нет here. Is it? It should be it, because it's not a question. If it were a real question and we expected an answer, then it would be like, this isn't really surprising, is it? And then we would expect them to give us an answer. But this is sort of a rhetorical question, but it's a tag question. This isn't really surprising. Денег нет. Is it? Do the second one because it's actually the same, right? Well, in Russian, that would be like "не правда ли?" and the people should really say "да-да-да." They start nodding. Okay, number 3, the same. Shouldn't we, right? Shouldn't we? Okay. Now, there is another technique, number 4. Again, we are keeping rapport with the audience. We need their consent. Use the falling tone here, as in the previous statement. It can be an appeal to the audience, right? You know, don't we want shorter hours? А разве нет? Don't we want higher wages? But anyway, you might make it a statement. We want shorter hours. We want higher wages. Nice, people will understand. But if you sort of make it a negative question, then the people will get it a little bit closer to their heart. Don't we want shorter hours? Don't we want higher wages? Again, negative. So tag questions, negative questions. Now let us move on to number 5. This is just you know, some words, nothing special about the intonation. So which phrase makes it particularly you know, attractive to the audience? If you're anything like me, I really love it. So let me probably point to number 6. It's right. So it's making our speech, our speech more conversational. And this right can be actually used instead of any tag question. And those colloquialisms like right, or I mean, you know, as if they were like false starts or explaining things and re-explaining things. And then let me ask you a question. Of course, here probably impact techniques and rapport techniques would overlap. Let me ask you a question, and then a rhetorical question, like number 7. When was the last time? Oh, sorry, this is not a rhetorical question. I'm sorry. When was the last time you received dozens of emails that didn't even directly concern you? So it's a direct question to the audience. Then here we would expect them, right, to answer the question. Probably people would raise their hands, which is a well-known technique. Those of you who know or have been there here before, please raise your hands. I would like you to talk to your neighbor, asking them to do something. Yeah, numbers 9 and 10. Let's do those. Which phrase would you emphasize as a rapport technique? You don't need me to tell you. So just like if you are anything like me, if you don't, I'm one of you. This is rapport technique. I am one of you. I embrace, please embrace me together. Well, then the whole audience, I am part of the audience. And now 10. I can see that some of you are skeptical. I really love this. It's a very powerful rapport technique. You know what it's about? It speaks well for the very high level of preparation on part of the speaker, because that means that while you are as a speaker, you are preparing the speech. You know at what point, or you can anticipate at what point the audience would be skeptical, or you can anticipate some, well, not only the skepticism or what they might be arguing about, or what might they be feeling about, you know, and this needs a lot of preparation and a lot of thought and consideration given to the preparation of the text of the speech. So, but now I can see that some of you are skeptical. It is not a well. So it is a matter of anticipating and preparation. Or you might be thinking by now. Some of you might be thinking that. Also a very nice device. Again, this is anticipating the reaction of the audience, but beforehand, it can be planned. Well, as for 11, I guess it's just plain and easy. You look on the card you were given, so some instructions. Yes, good. So I'd like you to get up and find the person. So again, asking them to interact with each other, or interact with we'll even walk around the room. And so all those things that I think particularly American speakers are very, very good at. And they use it very often, like raising the hands and all that. So I would say that now I still hope that you are keeping the posture and you were reading those exam rapport techniques with Steve Jobs, you know, openness and smile, which works for any audience. Now let us move on with, again, with the central idea, the audience and the context, with using your language and your speech to the point, to the to adjusting it to the audience and context and the context. Now I'm bringing 2 examples of movie speeches, and the idea is, or the task is, please identify the central idea, the context, and the audience of each speech. Here is speech number 1. You might have recognized it, right?
From Avatar.
So, so what is the context? The mayor, a military person, yeah, to the recruits who were about to go to Pandora, and he's giving instructions. So this is the main purpose of the speech. We have designated the audience. We'll identify the context. And now, what do you think is the main idea of his instructions? Or look for the main, probably, sentence or part of the speech. And in your speeches, in your future presentations, it's only you who designate which is the main part, which is the central idea. And that is why if we are talking about movies, about films, that is why there are so many remakes. And every time a director and even actors, you know, they can play the role in different ways. But definitely, if the context and the audience are defined, then of course we can imagine what kind of character it is and what kind of voice we should be using to adjust the voice to this particular idea, to this particular audience, and to this particular context. So I would probably, but of course I know the speech. Well, I mean, I know how the actor is pronounced, acted it out. There was, you know, a change between this Navi, well, after Navi, and all of a sudden just another idea. So the first one was, you are in danger, right? And so you're not in Kansas, you're in danger, there is a problem. And then all of a sudden, his feelings, like, as head of security, my job to keep you alive. So first he talked about death, actually, and then he speaks about his responsibility to keep you alive. And that's his, at least, key message. And you know, his voice changes. You remember I told you variety is the key, and contrastedness. So if in the first part of the speech he spoke with like steel voice, like this and this and this, danger, 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 Navi, they'll kill you, they will use you, eat your eyes for jujubes, then as a head of security, and then he said it a little bit quieter. But again, we orchestrate our ideas by voice. And then you see the final, you got to obey the rules, Pandora rules. So you can imagine what kind of voice should be used, where you should use pauses, and where you should accelerate, where you should slow down. It's, again, you orchestrate the ideas depending on your key message. Now the second. And if you compare sort of the voice, right, with which the first speech was delivered, and here, will you change anything if you were to act it out? How different is it? This is more intimate, right? Those were instructions. Again, the purposes are different. Then the context is different. The audiences are different. And thus we adjust our behavior. We adjust the voice again. Okay. And which part would you probably will speak with more sincerity, with more intimate tone? Which is the so-called climax that would reveal the message. I would agree probably with this one, well, and with this last but one paragraph, that the person, since he is summarizing his life, actually, right? This is sort of the bottom up. So yeah, the bottom line of his life, and he's sharing his most intimate ideas and his sincere gratitude to the people who have been all this time with him. Probably he is saying that there is only one candle wish, that, guys, I have had a wonderful life because of you, and well, I wish you would also do it like that. Thank you very much. Again, audience context define the purpose and the central idea. And again, we orchestrate our ideas in different ways according to those parameters. And besides, you know, it's not only about the language, as you can see. You didn't see the audiences. You could judge it by the texts, right? And you could even imagine the tone of voice, which we should also change each time, because we can't, you know, swap the roles and read them in different ways. What is more, we cannot change the images. You see, this is the image of the officer, and this is the image of Anthony Hopkins saying the speech in Meet Joe Black, his final speech, right, when he's actually about to, well, going to die soon. And you see those images cannot be swapped. Again, this is about how we dress up, how we smile, or how we, what kind of face expression we have on well, on our faces, so to speak. So what kind of gestures we are using, well, how sort of vividly we express our emotions, and of course the voice. It all goes together: the image, the voice, the body language, the text together, and well, and then to get to the main idea, audience, and context. I hope that's well. This is as much as I probably wanted to tell you about, again, combining the theory and some of the exercises. Let us move on to some more practice. You remember that whatever picture with the voice, it's pitch, pace, power, pause. Pause is a powerful technique, of course, is a powerful ingredient of the voice. There might be pauses, pauses might be longer and shorter. Shorter pauses are taken or are used in between the chunks. In Russian, they are syntagmy, because we need to take a breath, right? And so we speak in syntagmy, in chunks. Longer pauses are put between sentences because they are sort of more or less completed ideas. And even longer pauses should be used after each idea. Like in writing, it's after each paragraph. Again, there is structure in writing, and our ideas should be structured in speaking as well. And pauses will help us to highlight key information and to also, highlight the grammatical and the meaningful structure of the speeches or of our text that we produce. And there are special pauses that we might use before key words, to emphasize keywords, or there might be some pauses which last longer. They are called caesura, and they should last longer than 3 seconds. This is called the 3 seconds second rule, because actually an average syntagma lasts for 3 seconds, and then we are breathless and we need to take a breath. But if we keep silent for more than 3 seconds, then the audience, might be a little bit confused by what's happening. They start getting worried. Keeping silent for more than, the chunk means that we want to say something, or there is something wrong with us. So this is called this 3 second rule. So if you happen to probably, I don't know, pass examinations, particularly in IELTS and TOEFL or whatever, never keep silent, even if you don't know the answer to the questions, because naturally people might think that there is something wrong that you don't know. So don't keep silent for more than 3 seconds. Okay, different kinds of pauses, but here logical pauses. Let us take the first phrase: ignore everything I am telling you. So please, by shifting the pause, you can change the meaning. In writing, we have got punctuation marks. In English, in speaking, we have only our intonation and our voice, and probably facial expression and gestures. Or sometimes, like we can do like, what is this thing called? Love? Well, with indignation. But again, please, it was used to draw your attention to the pauses, and I can see that you can make physically make pauses very easily. Let us move on to some more difficult exercises, and this is one of the, again, impact techniques. You remember, accumulating points, and the pause would be very important here. Please have a look at the first extract. What impact techniques are used here? Repetition of points. Everything is up and then down. Okay, contrast it in one just statement. And you remember I told you about amplification and разрядка. So a lot of points are, and plus a contrast are used. And then, of course, the main idea or the key message is, to put it briefly, it's our best year ever. Of course, we should slow down there, but this sign, and we should be practicing the pauses particularly. Well, usually pauses are drawn like by, well, the pause sign is bars. So the more bars there are, the longer the pause. So you can even, by orchestrating your ideas, you can use your own meta language. I don't know, put 1 rabbit or 2 rabbits or 3 rabbits, it's up to you, as long as you understand them. So it will be like sales are up, exports are up, profits are up, shareholders' dividends are up. And then, of course, we have to make a pause before a contrast, right? And costs are down. To put it briefly, it's our best year ever. So please think of where you would slow down, where you would use the pause in the next 2 extracts. Now we've come to the champagne actually thing. And I think this popping out, well, you can imagine that the cork goes out with some freezing sound from, well, from the bottle of champagne. And I think this image is very, well, is a very illustrative to illustrate how to use your voice to show contrasts or to emphasize ideas. Actually, for us Russians, again, you remember the narrow pitch range, and we do not use changing the pitch to a higher position as much as they do in English. That is why, the first cork is popping out, well, is getting out or pops up a little bit in the first phrase, and you already know this quote, but it should be even, it should be producing even more freezing sound and more sound in the second one. Like, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you, and higher, ask what you can do for your country. This is contrast and repetition, those impact techniques. And of course, we should emphasize ideas. Again, ideas first. We have to elicit those ideas which are contrasted, and only after that think of how to emphasize them by this champagne, or probably by by pauses. I wanted to also draw attention to the following. Why do we use quotes, and why quotes matter in our presentations, whether we report on our findings or giving lectures? Why we use quotes? What's the purpose? It's a kind of evidence, reliable evidence, right? It adds value to our research or our ideas, of course, and it proves that we are correct when we are right. Also, we use the quotes because we can't say better. We never paraphrase them, because they are already phrased so nicely, so beautifully, that, even if we, sometimes the quotes are really long. And we sometimes when we will delivering speech, then we take out a sheet of paper and read it out, because it's probably long. But again, we should read it out, even read it out, not to mention say it or reproduce it very carefully, and articulate the words very well by rendering the meaning so that everyone could hear those brilliant words, because we can't say better. So we cannot, read it very quickly. We should understand the meaning, emphasize the meaning by the voice, and not to be in a hurry. Please exaggerate as Russian speakers should, because we do lack this inherently. This wow, this champagne, you know. Remember those corks of champagne going. Again, for contrast, and remember the quotes matter, how we do that. And one more probably rhetorical technique, I mean, speaking in terms of using voice, is called the terrace. So you already can see those things that you know. This is the pause, this is bottles of champagne. And so the first device is, what is this impact technique called? What's the main challenge we face? It's a rhetorical question, right? So there is a rhetorical question. And in Russian, it is вопрос-ответный ход. So by rhetorical question, we attract attention to what happens next, or what we are going to speak next. To the very idea is piracy. This is the champagne thing here. So of course, if it were just as plain as this, piracy is the main challenge we face. Nice. But impact technique, so rhetorical question. So what's the main challenge we face? And then we repeat, the main challenge is piracy. But also, you see, before those bars, we can see an arrow. And it's called a terrace. Besides putting a pause or making a pause, we also prolong the last word, the long vowel, to be more precise. So the main challenge is piracy, because this is what the audience wants from us, or is anticipating. So what's the main challenge we face? Challenge is the main word, right? So what's the main challenge we face? The main challenge is piracy. And I really hope you can do those. I showed you how to. I really hope that you will remember this. You remember this. And you remember this and that one, and even that one, and even that one, and even that one. So these are the ingredients of an effective speaker to get the message across. And we have learned the key rhetorical techniques as well. I've already emphasized by capital letters those words which are to be emphasized, which make our sentences more impactful. Now we use the voice, the pause, the champagne, probably денег нет, and try to keep the posture and put your palms in front, facing the audience, put on a smile and pronounce. In most of the coaching, in public speaking coaching books, they say, okay, speak with enthusiasm. And I've shown to you what it means, actually. It's speaking with enthusiasm, bit by bit, all those ingredients, plus, of course, the wording. All that brings us probably to the end of this training. So I hope that, getting back to Shakespeare, so we have covered the key rhetorical techniques. This is good sentences, how to create rapport, how to make our wording or words more impactful. Secondly, we practiced the voice, how to use it to convey the message. And remember, please, message first, because of the three factors that we have to designate before we actually move on to making it, to delivering it, how to use voice and what are the key ingredients of the voice, and what is the difference between non-native speakers speaking speaking in public and native speakers, or say like not native speakers, or English, okay, speaking people, and particularly with the focus on us Russians, because inherently we have our own, so to speak, scale of intonation means, and we have to pay attention to the pitch range and pitch change primarily, and then of course to pauses, but to highlight the meaning first, central idea first. We have to work on that and to anticipate the audience's reaction. So thank you very much. From William Shakespeare. and from me, of course. And thank you very much. You have been a wonderful audience.